Have you ever wondered why some people can stay calm, even when they're attacked, humiliated or betrayed, while others explode at the slightest provocation? The difference isn't willpower, it's not personality, and it certainly isn't luck. The difference lies in secret knowledge that emperors, leaders, and geniuses throughout history mastered perfectly, but was never taught to ordinary people like us. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful emperor of the ancient world, faced conspiracies, betrayals, revolts, and assassination attempts practically every day of his life. Imagine for a second the pressure, the anger, the frustration he must have felt when senators he protected tried to stab him in the back, when generals he promoted rebelled against him, when peoples he defended attacked him mercilessly. And yet, this man never lost control, never exploded, never reacted in the heat of emotion. And for that reason, he became known as one of the most respected leaders in human history. He left behind a phrase that changed my perspective forever. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. When I first read this quote, I thought it was just another pretty self-help phrase. But when I began studying Marcus Aurelius's life in depth, I discovered that this wasn't just a philosophy. It was a survival and domination strategy that he applied religiously every single day. The truth is that most of us were taught exactly the opposite of what truly intelligent people do when they're angry. We were told that when you're right, you have the right to explode, that it's healthy to express your feelings, that you need to defend yourself when attacked. And because of these teachings, millions of people lose jobs, destroy relationships, ruin reputations, and waste opportunities every day, simply because they can't control their emotional reactions. But Marcus Aurelius knew something that would completely change your way of dealing with conflicts, provocations, and high-pressure situations. He discovered that there's a fundamental difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is instinctive, primitive, destructive. Responding is strategic, intelligent, powerful, and this difference can literally save your life. Have you ever experienced that moment when someone provoked you and you exploded, said things you shouldn't have, showed your vulnerability, and then spent time brooding, thinking, why did I do that? Or, if I could go back in time, I would have acted differently. How many opportunities have you lost because you couldn't control your emotional reaction? How many people gained advantage over you because they discovered exactly where to press to make you lose control? The question isn't whether you'll face situations that make you angry. That's inevitable. The question is how you'll react when it happens, and that's exactly where intelligent people separate themselves from ordinary people. While most explode, shout, justify themselves, and reveal their weak points, truly intelligent people do something completely different. They follow 3 rules that Marcus Aurelius developed throughout his life as emperor. 3 rules that kept him in power and respected even when facing the worst enemies imaginable. These 3 rules are so powerful, they can transform any ordinary person into a person of respect and authority. They're so effective they can protect you from manipulators, from toxic people, from humiliating situations. And they're so simple that anyone can apply them immediately, even if you've always been the explosive type. What I'm going to share with you now aren't abstract theories or vague self-help advice. These are concrete strategies tested by one of the most powerful men in history in life or death situations. And if Marcus Aurelius applied these tactics to maintain control of the greatest empire in the world, imagine what they can do for your personal, professional, and emotional life. The first of these 3 rules will shock you because it's exactly the opposite of what everyone does when they're angry. The first of these 3 rules will shock you because it's exactly the opposite of what everyone does when they're angry. But before I reveal these 3 strategies that changed not only Marcus Aurelius's life, but my own life, and that of thousands of people who applied these teachings, I need to make a request that might seem simple. but makes all the difference. If you've come this far, if you recognize that you need to learn to control your emotional reactions in a more intelligent way, leave your like on this video right now. It's not just to help the channel, it's for you to commit to this transformation. It's a way for you to say, yes, I want to change, I want to learn, I'm willing to apply these lessons in my life. And more importantly, in the comments, I want you to be brutally honest with me and yourself. Write, I explode, if you're the type who loses control when provoked, or write, I regret, if you've already said things in anger that you wish you'd never said. Don't be ashamed. We've all been there. In fact, that's exactly why we're here. When you write this publicly, you're not just acknowledging yourself, you're freeing yourself. You're admitting there's room to grow. And more importantly, you're creating a connection with thousands of other people who are going through the same situation as you. Because here's how it is. We're not just a generic self-help channel that throws pretty phrases at you. We're a community of people who understood that to win in life, you first need to win over yourself. People who understood that the greatest enemy isn't out there. It's in here, in our uncontrolled reactions, in our destructive impulses, in our inability to think before acting. So, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, click the subscribe button now. It's not just because you'll receive notifications of upcoming videos, it's because you're declaring that you're part of a select group of people who want to apply the wisdom of great historical leaders to transform their lives. You're saying you refuse to continue being an ordinary person who reacts in ordinary ways and gets ordinary results. You want extraordinary results, and for that, you need extraordinary strategies. Every video we post here is a masterclass based on the teachings of the greatest geniuses, emperors, philosophers, and leaders who ever existed. Marcus Aurelius is just the beginning. We have Napoleon Bonaparte teaching you about intelligent ambition, Machiavelli revealing the secrets of influence, Sun Tzu showing how to win any conflict. We have an entire library of wisdom that can completely transform your way of thinking, acting, and achieving your goals. So, if you're really committed to this journey, if you really want to discover how intelligent people deal with anger in a way that makes them stronger, more respected, and more powerful, do your part now. Like, comment, and subscribe. And stay until the end of this video, because what comes next can literally save your relationships, your career, and your peace of mind. The first thing that intelligent people never do when they're angry is something that goes against all your natural instincts, but that Marcus Aurelius discovered to be the most powerful weapon in any conflict. The first thing that intelligent people never do when they're angry is something that goes completely against our human nature, against everything we were taught about how to defend our honor or show who we are. Marcus Aurelius discovered this in the most painful way possible when he was still young and inexperienced in command. He had just assumed the throne, was only 25 years old, and faced his first major crisis. A rebellion by a general he considered practically a father. This general didn't just betray Marcus, but did something much worse. He publicly attacked the honor of the imperial family, spread rumors about the young emperor's leadership capacity, questioned his intelligence, his strength, his legitimacy to govern. It was the type of attack that makes your blood boil, that makes you want to scream to the whole world that all of that is a lie, that you're capable, that you're strong, that you deserve respect. And that's exactly what Marcus almost did. He wrote a furious letter to the Senate, detailing every sacrifice he had made for the empire, every victory he had conquered, every moment when he proved worthy of the throne. He was ready to expose all his insecurities, all his fears, all his vulnerabilities, trying to convince others of his worth. But at the last hour, something prevented him from sending that letter. Maybe it was intuition, maybe divine wisdom, or maybe just the fatigue of anger that made him stop and think. And in that moment of pause, Marcus realized a devastating truth. By trying to justify himself, by trying to prove his worth through desperate words, he was doing exactly what his enemy wanted. He was delivering a detailed map of where exactly he could be hurt. Every justification was a confession of insecurity. Every defensive argument was an admission that the criticisms had hit their target. Marcus understood that day that when you're angry, your first tendency is to reveal exactly where it hurts. It's as if anger were a detector that points directly to your deepest wounds. The person who provoked you no longer needs to guess your weak points. You're delivering them on a silver platter. You shout, "I'm not weak," and automatically confirm that you're afraid of being seen as weak. You yell, "I deserve respect," and reveal that you feel disrespected. You explode with, "I'm not stupid," and prove that your intelligence is your Achilles heel. That's why truly intelligent people do the opposite of what everyone expects. They never reveal their weak points when they're angry. No matter how provoked they are, no matter how unfair the accusations, no matter how much they're boiling inside, they keep their vulnerabilities locked like an imperial vault. Think about the last time you exploded at someone. Remember exactly what you said. Now tell me, did you reveal your fears, your insecurities, your sensitive points? Did you say things like, "I always do my best," or "nobody values me," or "I don't deserve to be treated like this"? Each of these phrases is a confession. It's like handing the weapon to your enemy and asking them to shoot. Marcus Aurelius developed a technique that completely changed his way of dealing with attacks and provocations. He called it the armor of silence. When someone tried to provoke him, instead of defending himself or counterattacking, he simply observed. Not with anger, not with contempt, but with scientific curiosity, as if he were studying a wild animal in its natural habitat. Because Marcus understood something revolutionary. When someone attacks you with anger, that person isn't revealing your weaknesses, they're revealing their own. The way someone attacks you tells you exactly what hurts that person most. If they call you weak, it's because strength is what they value most, and perhaps what they most fear losing. If they question your intelligence, it's because they feel insecure about their own mental capacity. If they attack your appearance, it's because they're obsessed with their own image. And here's the secret that separates emperors from subjects. While ordinary people use anger to expose themselves, intelligent people use others' anger to collect strategic information. It's as if each attack were a small, unauthorized autobiography of your attacker. Every insult is a map of their fears. Every provocation is a confession of their insecurities. So, the next time someone provokes you and you feel that fire rising in your chest, that desperate urge to justify yourself, to prove your worth, to show who you really are, remember Marcus Aurelius. Remember that your first reaction shouldn't be to speak, but to observe. It shouldn't be to defend yourself, but to learn. It shouldn't be to reveal your wounds, but to discover the wounds of whoever is attacking you. If you recognize that you've already made this mistake, if you've already delivered your weak points in anger, comment, "I exposed myself" down below. There's no shame in that. It's the first step to change. And get ready, because the second thing that intelligent people never do when they're angry will surprise you even more. And it has to do with something Marcus discovered about the power of time and how it can be your most devastating weapon. The second imperial strategy that Marcus Aurelius completely mastered goes against another deeply human instinct that was taught to us as virtue, but which is actually one of the greatest emotional traps that exist. And the most shocking thing is that most people don't even realize they're falling into this trap, because they were conditioned to believe that reacting immediately is synonymous with courage, honesty, authenticity. Marcus discovered this in the most humiliating way possible during a Roman Senate meeting. A veteran senator, known for his eloquence and harshness, publicly humiliated the young emperor in front of all the other senators, questioning a military decision that had cost the lives of Roman soldiers. The man didn't just criticize the decision, He verbally destroyed Marcus, calling him inexperienced, irresponsible, unworthy of his imperial ancestors' blood. Everyone in the room fell into absolute silence, waiting for the emperor's reaction. After all, nobody spoke to Caesar like that and remained unpunished. Protocol demanded an immediate response, a demonstration of authority, an assertion of power. Marcus felt anger rise like volcanic lava. His first instinct was to destroy that man right there, in front of everyone, to show who really commanded Rome. But something extraordinary happened. Instead of exploding, Marcus simply stood up, looked directly into the senator's eyes, smiled slightly, and said only one word: "Interesting." Then, calmly, he left the room. He left everyone confused, perplexed. Some thought he had shown weakness, others thought he was planning something terrible. But Marcus knew exactly what he was doing. What happened next became one of the most studied power lessons in Roman history. Marcus did absolutely nothing against that senator. He didn't punish him, didn't humiliate him, didn't transfer him. He simply waited. 3 months passed. The senator, thinking he had escaped unpunished, continued with his provocations, only now even bolder. He began questioning other decisions, forming alliances against the emperor, spreading his influence. And that's exactly when Marcus showed his strategic genius. He had spent those 3 months observing, studying, collecting information about all that senator's allies, all his businesses, all his political weaknesses. When he finally acted, it wasn't against the senator directly. It was like a chess master moving multiple pieces simultaneously. A series of coincidences began to happen. The senator's allies lost lucrative contracts. His sons were rejected for prestigious military positions. His proposals in the Senate began to be systematically ignored. In 6 months, that man who had humiliated the emperor was politically isolated, financially ruined, socially irrelevant. And most brilliantly, Marcus never had to lift a finger directly against him. This is the devastating difference between reaction and strategic response. When you react immediately, you're fighting with emotions in command. You're hot, impulsive, predictable. Your response is dictated by the heat of the moment, by the pressure of the situation, by others' expectations. You become hostage to circumstances created by your provocateur. But when you choose not to react immediately, when you master that desperate urgency to show who you are right away, you completely reverse the power dynamic. Suddenly, you're no longer dancing to their music. You're no longer following the script they wrote for you. You step out of the reactive role and assume the strategic role. Marcus Aurelius developed what he called the imperial pause, a sacred space between provocation and response, where true intelligence happens. In this space, you're not asking, "How will I react?" but rather, "What's the best way to deal with this?" You're not thinking, "What can I say now?" but "What's the ideal moment to respond?" Because intelligent people understand something fundamental about time. It's always your ally when you know how to use it. In the heat of anger, you only have the information and resources available at that exact moment. But when you give yourself time, you can plan, you can observe, you can collect more data, you can think of multiple approaches, you can choose the battlefield. Think about how many discussions you've had where you said things you regretted 5 minutes later. How many times have you thought, "If I had stopped to think, I would have handled this completely differently"? This isn't coincidence. It's the difference between reacting on emotional autopilot and responding with strategic intelligence. And here's something that might shock you. When you don't react immediately, when you demonstrate that you have control over your emotions even under pressure, you automatically gain respect, even from people who are provoking you. Because deep down, we all know how to recognize real strength when we see it. And real strength isn't shouting louder, it's staying calm when everyone expects you to explode. Marcus wrote in his personal diary a phrase that changed my perspective forever. The man who can control his immediate reaction controls the final outcome of the situation. He knew that whoever dictates timing dictates the game. Whoever chooses when and how to respond has infinitely more power than whoever simply reacts on impulse. So the next time someone provokes you, when you feel that urgent pressure of, I need to respond now, I need to defend myself now, I need to show who I am now, remember that this urgency isn't your friend, it's a trap. The person who provoked you is counting exactly on this need for immediate reaction. They prepared the arena, chose the weapons, defined the rules, and now they're waiting for you to enter this game. If you've already fallen into this trap, if you've already reacted in the heat of emotion and regretted it later, comment, I reacted, down below. And get ready for the third and most powerful strategy of Marcus Aurelius, which has to do with something he called never fighting in the enemy's arena. A lesson that can literally transform you from victim to winner in any conflict. The third and most devastating strategy that Marcus Aurelius mastered is probably the most difficult to accept because it goes against everything our ego screams when we're being attacked. It's a lesson he learned not in the golden palaces of Rome, but in the frozen battlefields of the Germanic frontier, where the difference between life and death was measured in seconds and strategic decisions. Marcus was commanding his legions against a confederation of barbarian tribes that had developed a peculiar and extremely effective tactic. Instead of facing the organized Roman formations in open field, where Rome had obvious advantage, they lured soldiers into dense forests, treacherous swamps, narrow gorges, terrain where Roman discipline became a disadvantage and barbarian savagery reigned supreme. Initially, Marcus lost battle after battle. His most experienced generals insisted he should accept direct challenges, that refusing would be a demonstration of cowardice, that a Roman emperor couldn't flee from a fight. Political pressure in Rome was immense. Senators questioned his leadership. The people murmured about the young Caesar's weakness. Marcus felt the weight of having to prove he was worthy of the throne through brute force, direct confrontation, accepting any challenge thrown against him. But on a particularly cold night, after yet another humiliating defeat, Marcus had an epiphany that would change not only his military strategy, but his entire life philosophy. He realized he was fighting exactly the way his enemies wanted. On their territory, with their rules, using weapons they dominated better, he was being manipulated to fight their war, not his own war. The next morning, Marcus did something that shocked even his most loyal generals. When the barbarians appeared shouting challenges at the forest entrance, provoking the Romans, calling them cowards, questioning their honor, Marcus simply ignored them completely, as if they didn't even exist. Instead, he began building a road, a paved Roman road, right in the middle of barbarian territory. The enemies were confused. They tried to attack the workers, but Marcus had positioned his legions so that any attack would have to happen on open ground, where Rome dominated absolutely. The barbarians found themselves in an impossible situation. Either they accepted fighting in the Roman arena, or they watched helplessly while Marcus transformed the entire geography of the region to his advantage. In 6 months, Marcus had not only conquered that entire territory, but had done so without losing a single significant battle. He had completely changed the rules of the game. Instead of accepting the challenge on the enemy's terms, he created his own terms, his own arena, his own conditions for victory. This military experience taught Marcus something that became the foundation of all his personal philosophy. Intelligent people never fight in the enemy's arena. They never accept rules imposed by the provocateur. They never let themselves be dragged into the type of conflict that the other person dominates better. Because when someone provokes you, when they attack you, when they try to humiliate you, that person is essentially inviting you to a fight. But it's not a fair fight. It's a fight where they chose the location, the weapons, the rules, the timing. It's like being challenged to a race by someone who chose a course that only they know, using shoes that only they master, at a time of day that only favors them. If someone provokes you by shouting and you shout back, you're fighting in their arena, the arena of emotional uncontrol. If someone attacks you with insults and you respond with insults, you're using their weapons of verbal aggression. If someone tries to create drama and you enter the drama, you're following their script, the script of chaos and confusion. And here's the hardest truth. When you accept fighting in the enemy's arena, you always lose. Always. Even if you win momentarily, even if you shout louder, insult better, cause more drama, you lost. Because you proved you can be controlled, manipulated, dragged into any situation your provocateurs want. Marcus developed what he called the art of your own arena. When someone tried to provoke him with shouts, he responded with whispers that forced the person to calm down, to listen. When they tried to attack him with insults, he responded with questions that put the attacker on the defensive. When they tried to create urgency, he responded with patience that completely frustrated the provocateur's strategy. He understood that whoever controls the arena controls the outcome. If you allow others to dictate how, when, and where conflict happens, you've already lost before even starting. But when you refuse to enter their arena and create your own conditions, you completely reverse the power dynamic. Imagine for a moment how this works in practice. Someone sends you an aggressive message, full of provocations, trying to drag you into a text discussion. The intelligent response isn't to write an even more aggressive message back. That would be accepting their arena. The intelligent response might be to call the person and force a voice conversation where the tone changes completely. Or even better, arrange a face-to-face meeting where the dynamic becomes totally different. Someone tries to humiliate you publicly in front of other people, counting on embarrassment and social pressure to make you explode. Accepting this game would be trying to defend yourself right there, in front of everyone, using the stage they set up. But the intelligent response might be simply leaving the situation and addressing the issue privately, where you have much more control over how the conversation develops. The secret is recognizing that every provocation is an attempt to drag you into a specific type of conflict. And truly intelligent people always ask themselves, what type of conflict favors me? Where do I have advantage? What are the ideal conditions for me to deal with this situation? Marcus wrote something in his diary that gives me chills every time I read it. The wise man doesn't accept duels proposed by fools because he knows the fool always chooses an arena where foolishness is advantageous. He knew that accepting any provocation on the provocateur's terms was a guaranteed recipe for disaster. So, the next time someone tries to drag you into the type of conflict they dominate, remember you have a choice. You can accept their arena and fight under their conditions, or you can do like Marcus Aurelius, completely refuse the proposed game and create your own rules. If you recognize that you've already fallen into this trap, that you've already accepted fighting in the enemy's arena and came out losing, comment, "I accepted their game," down below. And now get ready to discover how to apply these 3 imperial strategies in practice, because what Marcus did after mastering these techniques transformed any conflict into an opportunity for growth and power. The practical application of these 3 imperial strategies of Marcus Aurelius requires something most people think is impossible: transforming anger into scientific curiosity. Marcus developed a technique he called the imperial observer method. And when you understand how it works, you'll realize you can apply this immediately in your life. The technique was simple, but revolutionary. Every time Marcus felt provoked, instead of asking, "How will I react?" he asked 3 specific questions. What is this person trying to achieve with me? Why did they choose this specific approach? What weakness of theirs is being revealed now? These questions completely changed his emotional state. Instead of a victim being attacked, he became a scientist studying human behavior. Instead of reacting with anger, he reacted with fascination. Instead of defending himself, he collected strategic data he could use later. Marcus noticed patterns that ordinary people never see. When someone attacked him in front of others, he identified that the person needed an audience to feel powerful, which revealed deep insecurity. When someone provoked him through written message, he knew the person didn't have courage for direct confrontation, which showed cowardice masked as aggression. The emperor transformed every provocation into a human psychology lesson. And here's what impresses me most: the more he applied this technique, the less anger he felt. Because it's very difficult to be angry at someone when you're busy understanding why that person acts in such a predictable and desperate way. Imagine applying this in your life. Your boss humiliates you in front of the team. Instead of exploding or justifying yourself, you think, "Interesting, he needs to diminish me publicly to feel superior." What deep insecurity he must have about his own competence. Suddenly, you're no longer being attacked. You're collecting valuable information about how your leadership threatens his fragile ego. Marcus discovered that intelligent people do something that seems contradictory. They internally thank for provocations. Not because they like being attacked, but because each attack is a free lesson about human nature and an opportunity to practice self-control. If you want to apply the imperial method immediately, comment "I will observe" down below and get ready to discover the secret Marcus used to transform any enemy into a tool for personal growth. The secret that Marcus Aurelius guarded like imperial treasure was something he discovered by accident. In a situation that almost destroyed his reign, a Roman general named Avidius Cassius, whom Marcus considered one of his most loyal men, spread rumors that the emperor had died in campaign and declared himself the new Caesar. Half the empire believed the lie and swore loyalty to the traitor. When Marcus learned of the betrayal, he felt a rage he had never experienced. It wasn't just political rebellion, it was personal betrayal from the man he trusted most. His advisors begged for immediate revenge, for public execution, for exemplary punishment that would discourage future rebellions. Imperial protocol demanded blood. But Marcus did something that shocked even his closest allies. Instead of marching against Cassius with legions thirsty for revenge, he sent a letter that said only, "Dear Cassius, I heard you declared war against me. I'm curious to know why. Can we talk?" The letter leaked, as Marcus knew it would. Senators laughed at the emperor's weakness. Soldiers murmured about lack of leadership. Some provincial governors began questioning whether they should continue loyal to a Caesar who negotiated with traitors. 3 weeks later, Cassius was dead. Not executed by Marcus, but assassinated by the very soldiers who had proclaimed him emperor. Why? Because Marcus's apparently weak response had created something the traitor general didn't expect: doubt. Cassius's men began wondering what kind of leader they were following, if even the betrayed emperor showed willingness for dialogue. Marcus had discovered what he called the alchemy of reputation, transforming the enemy's strength into your own strength. When you respond to aggression with something unexpected, when you react to hatred with curiosity, when you meet attack with sincere questioning, you don't just disarm your opponent, you expose them. Because people who attack others always expect the same reaction: desperate defense, furious counterattack, or humiliating submission. When you offer something completely different, when you respond to their script with a totally new screenplay, they become lost, confused, vulnerable. Marcus understood that each person who attacks you is actually offering precious information about their own fears, insecurities, and weaknesses. And truly intelligent people know how to transform this information into strategic advantage, not into fuel for more anger. The emperor developed what he called the devastating question. When someone attacks you, instead of defending yourself or counterattacking, you simply ask, "Why is this so important to you?" 9 out of 10 times, the answer reveals much more about the attacker than about you. If you're ready to transform your conflicts into growth opportunities, comment "I will question" and discover how Marcus used this technique to identify true allies and false enemies. The most disturbing discovery that Marcus Aurelius made about human nature happened when he applied his 3 strategies for 2 consecutive years and began noticing a pattern that left him deeply reflective. People he considered close, loyal, trustworthy began reacting strangely to his new controlled and strategic behavior. One day, during an imperial banquet, Marcus overheard a conversation between 2 senators he respected. They were complaining that the emperor had become too calculating, too cold, that he was no longer the impulsive and accessible man from before. One of them even said, "I preferred when he exploded. At least we knew how to manipulate him." That phrase hit Marcus like a spear to the chest. He realized something devastating. Many people around him didn't like the controlled version of him. Not because it was worse, but because it was less predictable, less manipulable, less useful for their political games. Marcus discovered a bitter truth that few leaders have the courage to accept. When you stop being a reactive person and become a strategic person, you automatically expose who was really benefiting from your emotional outbursts. People who seemed to be on your side revealed that they actually depended on your impulsiveness to get what they wanted. He began conducting silent tests. When someone tried to provoke him expecting a specific reaction, Marcus observed not just the provocateur, but also the people around. Who seemed disappointed when he stayed calm? Who insisted he should react more? Who got frustrated when he didn't enter the drama? That's how Marcus developed what he called the emotional parasite detector. People who feed on the chaos you create when you lose control. They provoke you not because they're your enemies, but because they're addicted to the negative energy you produce when you explode. Your lack of control is the fuel they use to feel important, relevant, powerful. Marcus realized he had friends who only appeared when he was in crisis, advisors who always suggested the most dramatic solutions, family members who seemed disappointed when he resolved conflicts peacefully. All these people had something in common. They needed the uncontrolled Marcus to maintain their own positions of influence. The most shocking revelation came when he understood that many provocations he received didn't come from declared enemies, but from close people who had discovered exactly how to make him lose control. It was as if they had mapped his emotional buttons and pressed them whenever they needed a specific reaction from him. So, when you start applying these imperial strategies in your own life, prepare for an uncomfortable discovery. Some people around you will be genuinely bothered by your new controlled version. They'll try to convince you that you're changing for the worse, that you're losing your essence, that you're becoming too cold. Marcus learned to see these complaints as confirmation that he was on the right path. Because people who truly love you are happy when you grow, when you develop self-control, when you become a better version of yourself. Only emotional parasites get frustrated when you stop feeding the drama they consume. If you recognize you have people like this in your life who seem disappointed when you stay calm, comment "I have parasites" and get ready to discover how Marcus dealt with the loneliness that comes when you choose wisdom over popularity. The loneliness that Marcus Aurelius faced when he chose wisdom over popularity was perhaps the highest price he paid for personal transformation. But it was also where he made his most liberating discovery: the difference between being alone and being at peace with yourself. During the first months applying his self-control strategies, Marcus noticed that many conversations became different. People who before felt comfortable dumping their frustrations on him, expecting explosive reactions that would validate their own dramas, now felt uncomfortable with his constant calm. Friendships based on gossip and mutual complaints simply evaporated. Marcus wrote in his diary, "I discovered I had 2 types of company, people who sought me when I was at peace, and people who sought me when I was in chaos. The first were rare, but real. The second were many, but false. The emperor realized he had spent years surrounded by people who didn't like him. They liked the emotional benefits they got when he lost control. They liked feeling superior when he exploded. They liked having someone powerful they could manipulate through calculated provocations. When Marcus stopped feeding these games, when he refused to be the center of others' dramas, many people simply disappeared from his life. And initially, this was terrifying. He wondered if he had become a cold, insensitive person, if he had lost his humanity in the process of gaining control. But then something extraordinary happened. With all that energy he previously wasted on unnecessary emotional reactions, with all that time he previously spent managing conflicts created by his own impulsiveness, Marcus began building completely different relationships. He attracted people who admired his emotional stability instead of trying to destabilize it. He found advisors who offered solutions instead of increasing problems. He discovered friendships based on mutual growth instead of shared drama. Marcus developed what he called the law of conscious attraction. When you stop reacting predictably, you automatically repel predictable people and attract exceptional people. Because exceptional people aren't interested in childish emotional games. They respect self-control, admire emotional intelligence, value stability. The emperor realized that the temporary loneliness he felt when applying his strategies wasn't real loneliness. It was cleansing. It was the natural process of eliminating toxic relationships to open space for genuine connections. And here's something that can change your perspective forever. Marcus discovered he preferred being genuinely alone than artificially accompanied by people who only interested themselves in the uncontrolled version of him. Because chosen solitude is freedom, but false company is prison. If you're going through this now, if you're noticing that some people distance themselves when you stopped entering their games, comment, "I choose quality," and get ready to discover how Marcus transformed this apparent loss into his greatest victory. The transformation that Marcus Aurelius experienced when he completely embraced this relational cleansing was so profound that it changed not only who was around him, but fundamentally who he became. And the most surprising thing is that this change happened almost imperceptibly day by day, but devastatingly obviously when he looked back. Marcus began noticing that his mind worked differently. Before, when facing any type of provocation or conflict, his brain immediately entered crisis solution mode. It was as if a siren went off in his head every time someone tried to destabilize him. His focus fragmented, his energy dispersed, his decisions became emotionally contaminated. But now, with his 3 strategies operating automatically, Marcus discovered something extraordinary. He had access to mental clarity he never knew existed. Without the constant emotional drain of reacting to every provocation, without the wear of entering unnecessary conflicts, without the exhaustion of trying to prove his worth to people who would never value him, his mind was free to focus on what really mattered. The emperor began making better decisions, not because he became more intelligent, but because his decisions were no longer being influenced by unprocessed emotional wounds or the urgent need for external validation. He could think strategically about what was best for Rome, for his people, for his long-term objectives, without hurt ego or accumulated anger contaminating his judgment. Marcus realized he had developed something he called emotional immunity, the ability to remain centered and focused regardless of the chaos around him. It wasn't that he didn't feel emotions, he felt everything with the same intensity. But now he had choice about when and how to respond to those emotions. It was as if he had discovered a superpower, while other people were hijacked by their emotional reactions, losing hours, days, sometimes weeks, processing unnecessary conflicts. Marcus kept his energy directed toward building, creating, leading. The practical impact was impressive. Marcus managed to implement reforms that had been stuck for years because he no longer needed to spend political energy fighting with provocateurs. He built alliances that seemed impossible because people began trusting his stability. He solved crises that other emperors would have turned into wars because he had the patience and mental clarity to find creative solutions. But perhaps most importantly, Marcus discovered an inner peace that didn't depend on external circumstances. Even when facing the empire's greatest challenges, even when receiving the worst news, even when being betrayed or attacked, he maintained an unshakable center. Not because nothing affected him, but because he had learned to separate external events from his internal identity. Marcus wrote something that gives me chills every time I read it. I became master of myself. And when you are master of yourself, the entire world becomes your ally. He had discovered that true power doesn't come from controlling others, but from not being controlled by others. If you feel ready for this total transformation, to become truly immune to emotional manipulations, comment, "I choose power," and get ready to discover how to apply all this in a practical formula you can start using immediately. The practical formula that Marcus Aurelius created to apply all this in daily life was something he called the 3 sacred moments, a specific sequence that transformed any conflict situation into an opportunity to demonstrate real power. And the genius was in the simplicity. Anyone can apply this, even in the middle of the most intense anger. Marcus discovered that between provocation and his response, there always existed 3 distinct moments. 3 choice opportunities that most people waste by acting on emotional autopilot. But when you learn to recognize and take advantage of each of these moments, you basically become unstoppable in any conflict. The first sacred moment happens in the exact second when you realize you're being provoked. It's that fraction of a second where you feel anger starting to rise, where your body prepares to react, where your mind begins formulating automatic responses. Marcus trained to recognize this moment as a giant red sign flashing, "Stop! You're about to give away your power." In this first moment, Marcus did something he called the Emperor's Breath, a deep inhalation followed by a specific question. This person just gave me valuable information about themselves. What information is this? This simple shift in focus from "how will I react" to "what can I learn" already completely transformed his relationship with the situation. The second sacred moment comes right after, when your mind has already processed that you're being attacked and wants to formulate a response. It's when you would normally think, "I need to defend myself," or "I'm going to show this person who I am." Marcus transformed this moment into a strategy opportunity by asking, what type of response would give me the greatest long-term advantage? React now or respond later? Enter their arena or create my own arena? The third sacred moment is when you finally choose your response, whatever it may be. Marcus discovered that even if you decide to confront the person, even if you choose to be direct and firm, the quality of your response is completely different when it comes from a place of conscious choice instead of automatic emotional reaction. The formula worked like this. First moment, recognize and learn. Second moment, strategy and timing. Third moment, conscious execution. What transformed an ordinary person into an emperor wasn't never feeling anger, but having total control over what to do with that anger. Marcus tested this formula in progressively more difficult situations. He started with small provocations from servants and slaves, then applied it with irritating senators, eventually used it with rebel generals and enemy kings. The formula always worked. because it was based on a fundamental truth about human nature. Whoever controls their moments of choice controls the outcome of any situation. The most impressive thing is that this technique became automatic for Marcus. After months of practice, the 3 sacred moments happened naturally, without conscious effort. He had reprogrammed his standard emotional reactions. And here's something that can change your life. You can start practicing this immediately. In the next traffic argument, in the next workplace provocation, the next time someone tries to drag you into family drama, you have 3 moments of pure power waiting for you. If you're committed to mastering these 3 sacred moments, if you want to become immune to emotional manipulations, comment, "I master my moments," and get ready for Marcus Aurelius's last revelation. The secret that transformed him from an insecure young emperor into the most respected leader in history. The final secret that transformed Marcus Aurelius from an insecure young emperor into the most respected leader in history was a discovery he made on his deathbed, when he was only 58 years old and knew his days were numbered. It was when he finally understood the difference between being feared and being respected, between having power over others and having power over yourself. In his final days, Marcus received a visit from a young general who was about to assume an important position in the empire. The young man was nervous, insecure, asking how he could gain the soldiers' respect, how he should react when challenged, how he would prove he was worthy of command. Marcus looked at the young man and saw himself decades before. Desperate for validation, worried about others' opinions, trying to prove worth through dramatic reactions. And it was in that moment that the dying emperor had his last great revelation about leadership and personal power. He told the young man something that became his most famous phrase: "You will discover that true power isn't in making people fear your anger, but in making them admire your calm. It's not in winning every argument, but in choosing which arguments are worth having. It's not in proving you're strong, but in never needing to prove anything to anyone." Marcus explained that he had spent his entire life pursuing the wrong kind of respect. Initially, he thought he needed to be the most feared, most unpredictable, most explosive emperor. He thought power meant making people back down when he shouted, tremble when he threatened, bow when he displayed anger. But then he discovered something revolutionary. When people respect you out of fear, they're just waiting for the first opportunity to bring you down. When they respect you out of genuine admiration for your inner strength, they become your natural allies, even when you're not present to impose fear. The emperor had realized that his moments of greatest influence were never when he lost control, but when he maintained control under extreme pressure. Not when he shouted louder, but when he whispered with authority. Not when he threatened, but when he demonstrated he didn't need to threaten to get what he wanted. Marcus told the young man that the greatest lesson of his life was understanding that every provocation you receive is actually a test. A test to see if you're really as strong as you appear, or if your strength is just a mask that can be removed by anyone who knows which buttons to press. And truly powerful people always pass these tests, not because they're insensitive, but because they developed something Marcus called silent strength, the ability to remain unshakable, regardless of the storm around them. The emperor died 3 days after this conversation, but his last words to the young general spread throughout the empire and reached us. When you no longer need to prove you're strong, you've finally discovered what real strength is. When you no longer need to win every argument, you finally understood what true victory is. When you no longer need validation from others, you finally found the source of real power, which was always within you. This is the final transformation that happens when you completely master the 3 imperial strategies. You stop seeking respect and start radiating respect. You stop trying to prove worth and start demonstrating worth naturally. You stop reacting to the world and start responding to the world on your own terms. If you feel ready for this final transformation, if you want to become a person who never again needs to prove anything to anyone, comment, "I am real power." And remember, the emperor you can become is waiting on the other side of your next provocation. Marcus Aurelius taught us that the true measure of a person isn't how they act when being applauded, but how they react when being attacked. And now you have the tools that transformed an insecure young man into the most respected leader in history. The next provocation you receive will be your first test. And unlike before, now you know exactly how to pass that test like a true emperor. And now, my friend, we arrive at the moment of truth. If you've come this far, if you've watched these lessons from Marcus Aurelius from beginning to end, you're not an ordinary person. You're someone who understood that true power doesn't come from shouting louder, but from having total control over your emotional reactions. But here's the difference between people who just watch and people who really transform. Those who really change are those who make a conscious decision to apply these teachings in real life. And that decision begins now with a simple but powerful action. First, if these lessons from Marcus Aurelius touch something deep within you, if you recognize you need this imperial wisdom in your life, click the subscribe button right now. It's not just to receive notifications of upcoming videos, it's to be part of a community of people who chose to think like emperors instead of reacting like subjects. Second, in the comments, I want you to publicly declare your transformation. If you felt these strategies can change your life, if you're ready to never again be emotionally manipulated, comment, "I receive the power" right now. When you write this publicly, you're not just commenting, you're committing to a new version of yourself. Third, leave your like on this video. Not just to help the channel, but to mark this moment as the turning point in your emotional life. As the day you decided to stop being controlled by others and started controlling yourself. And finally, if you want to discover how to apply these lessons in even more complex situations, if you want to learn how Marcus Aurelius transformed enemies into allies using advanced psychological techniques, click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now. It's the direct continuation of this teaching, and the first secret will leave you speechless. Remember, the emperor you can become is on the other side of your next choice. Marcus Aurelius waited decades to discover these truths. You just learned them in less than 10 minutes. The next provocation you receive will be your first imperial test. And now, unlike before, you know exactly how to pass that test like a true Caesar. Your transformation begins now. See you in the next video, future Emperor.